Hello coders, welcome to episode 210 of the How to Code Well podcast. It is Saturday the 7th, and today we're going to be talking about how best to set yourself up as a student of web development on your first month. That's the topic of today's show, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about first. There's been an apology I want to make because on, I forget which day it was now, but last week, it's been such a busy week. Last week, the site went down, howtocodewell.net went down. And typically, this was when I was in London. And I wasn't anywhere near a laptop, and I couldn't get to fix the problem. The problem was of course something to do with the infrastructure. So I believe it was either Wednesday or Thursday. The site basically had a poop in its pants, and if I did a write-up. If I go to the browser here, I can show you. If I would go to the article outage report. The outage report is on Wednesday, the 4th of December. The website was unavailable for many hours. This post explains the cause of the outage, how it was fixed, and what has been put in place to prevent the outage from happening again. So let's just go through this now. So TLDR, this was human error. As always, keep infrastructure as code up to date with any manual changes. Better yet, don't make any manual changes. Before I start, I would like to apologize for any inconvenience whilst the site was down. As a way of an apology, I am continuing the current Black Friday sale until Monday the 9th of December. All coding courses between now and the 9th of December will be $10. I'll talk about that more later, I think. Okay, so what happened? This site runs on Kubernetes, on a Kubernetes cluster hosted by Linode. The LKE, or Linode Kubernetes Cluster, is a managed service and is regularly refreshed by Linode using the Kubernetes configuration. So yes, it's Kubernetes. Yes, there's a bunch of pods and whatnot, but it's actually a managed serviced by Linode, hosted by Linode. So I write the Kubernetes manifests. I have complete control over the Kubernetes pods using the command line, but they actually manage the infrastructure on where the pods sit and reside. So due to customer configuration, the load balancer needs to have what's called a proxy protocol. I'm just going to make this a bit bigger, actually. I've just seen on the stream it's a wee bit small. So yeah, needs to have the proxy protocol set. Where am I? Due to the configuration, load balancer needs to have the proxy protocol set to version 2, v2, to allow traffic to be sent to the relevant pods. When building the Kubernetes cluster, this setting was manually applied inside the Linode control panel, and this change was never reflected in the Kubernetes config, so in the actual YAML configuration. Whenever the LKE cluster was altered or refreshed by Linode, the Kubernetes config was used as a blueprint. As the protocol proxy setting was missing, the site did crash, and it went down for a large period of time that day, which is very, very disappointing. Okay, so how it was fixed. A manual fix was applied to the Linode node balancer to set the proxy protocol to v2. This was done in the Linode control panel as a temporary fix to get the site back up and running again. So I was able to just log into the Linode control panel, flip the switch, and then wait a couple of seconds, and everything was hunky-dory once more. Obviously, this fix only solved the immediate outage and did not fix the root cause, which was the missing annotation. So this here is an example of the missing annotation. It's a metadata. service.beta.kubernetes.io/linode load balancer proxy protocol, and the setting is v2. Okay, what is in place to prevent this from happening again? The ingress controller is managed by the Ingress Nginx Helm chart, which needed to be updated to apply the annotation. The proxy protocol setting was applied to the ingress controller when installing the Helm chart. So I have here some code on how to install this setString controller.service.annotation, and you pass in this value. So it's service beta Kubernetes IO, and then that load balancer default proxy protocol of v2. And obviously I've got other settings as well that I'm not putting on here for obvious security reasons and whatnot. And then future plans to minimize the outage. Even though this fix updates the active Helm chart, it would be prudent to create a custom Helm chart based on Nginx. So the Helm chart itself is off of the Ingress Nginx Helm chart. So this is the standard Ingress Nginx Helm chart. But it would be best if I could have my own Helm chart that I create that is kind of almost extended from this Helm chart, I guess, where I could actually have some more custom control with it. This would allow full customization of the load balancer, which would reduce the need for setting these values when installing upgrading Helm charts. So what I'm saying here is these set strings. It's fine to do this, right, when you're installing and upgrading Helm charts, but it's I think it would be better if I was to create my own Helm chart and have these actually defined in the Helm chart itself rather than passing them in as arguments, because you could miss one of these arguments off and screw the whole thing up. So once it's actually in code so once it's in code in the configuration and committed, it's there, right? There would also be an added security benefit of having ownership of the Helm chart instead of relying on a third party such as the Ingress Nginx Helm chart. Okay, that's just what I've just mentioned there. Okay, lessons learned. DevOps is not easy, and it can be tempting to fiddle with the GUIs to try different settings, but this can lead to unwanted side effects. So I remember doing this. I was getting a little bit frustrated with how the Kubernetes stuff wasn't working, and so I was flicking switches left, right, and center, and I was doing it on staging, so it wasn't on production, and then I moved staging to production, forgetting that I had actually set this manually, and the rest is history. So when treating infrastructure as code, there is a risk that changes made to using the GUI will not be reflected back to the static configuration. Yes. When the configuration is reloaded, any changes via the GUI will be lost. Therefore, it is important to treat IAC infrastructure as code as the single source of truth. I am going to slap my wrist. I should have done this. I am very apologetic. I'm sorry, but my way of apologizing is to offer the $10 for the courses until Monday. This was actually supposed to be. This offer was actually supposed to go on last Tuesday, but I've decided to continue it until next Monday, the 9th, as a way of an apology. And the if I was to go, let's just go back to the courses here. So these are the courses, right? So we've got PHP and MySQLi, PHP control structures, Linux Bash for beginners, PHP CLI basics, PHP string for beginners, HTML for beginners, and Docker for beginners. And there'll be many, many more coming up soon. So each one of these, if I go to Linux Bash for beginners, for instance, the original price is $60, but with this, it's $10. With this discount, it's $10. It's $10 for all of them. Well, for each one, obviously. You can't get all of them for $10. Each one is $10. And then come Monday, the price will go back up to what it was. So, with that being said, another feature that I added on yesterday, in fact, on Friday, was this fantastic banner. So this banner is on every page of the website on howtocodewell.net, and it's controlled by the content management system, and I can time box it. I can say, show this banner between these dates and times, right? And I have a button with a link. So this is the live stream podcast 210, which is what we're on here, and there's a button to watch it live. So this means that when you're ever on this website and I'm ever live, I can now tell people that, hey, I'm doing a live stream. But also I can use this banner to promote these discounts, these kind of offers as well. So once I've finished doing a live stream, the banner will change back to the offer of the notification that there's all the courses are set to $10. There are some features that I want to improve with this. For example, this watch live here. There needs to be kind of like an icon, I think, to say that to represent that when you click on this, you're actually going to another site or another page, for instance. At the moment, you click on this and then the whole thing just changes to YouTube. So it would be nice to have that. There's kind of like the square with a ticket with the arrow in it, which denotes that you're actually going to go to another site, another page. Also, I wouldn't mind having maybe some graphics in here as well, perhaps. Another idea is to have actually like a timer. So if it's a countdown, because now it's past 11:30 GMT, right? So that could change. This whole thing could change based on a timer that times down. So it can now say now live. Or something like that. And also with the offers and the discounts, I could have a timer on those too. But something else that I was really thinking of, probably more important than that, is I would love to have in the control panel a way to tell in the dashboard. So when you log in to the dashboard, actually have this personalized. So, for example, if you haven't logged in for a while, then I could give you a page of all of the courses that are new to you. Or if I made an alteration to a course that the system already knows that you've subscribed to, then it could tell you, notify you that there are new changes. Maybe there's a change to the documentation. Maybe there's been a new tutorial added, that kind of thing. So more personalized messaging based on your user's previous behavior. And also I'm kicking myself. I really am, because there was someone who there was some. I can see when people put things in the basket. The back end is controlled enough to, when someone puts things in their basket, I can see what they are. I can see where in the purchase journey they've got to, and I can see that this has happened just before the site went down. So that's frustrating, because I've obviously lost sales. And so I'm totally kicking myself there. But if those people were to ever log back in, I can perhaps maybe there isn't anything in place at the moment, but offer them specific discounts to say, this, we noticed that you've left this in your basket and we're giving you a special offer to continue your basket. That kind of thing, that kind of thing. You can tell I've worked in e-com for a while, can't you? So that's pretty cool. I'm very happy with the way this is moving. There's obviously some graphical changes that I need to improve, some UI bits and pieces. There's also this subscribe for weekly coding tutorials bit down here. I think I mentioned that last week. So yeah, the site's moving on, and more content will be added in the coming days and weeks and months. And look out for these little tweaks and changes. And I'm so glad I can actually talk about these now, rather than talk about plans that I want to do and not actually have anything to show you. So with that being said, let's talk about getting into the web development industry, and in particular, how to practice web development within your first month, because that, to me, is very important. This is one of the root reasons as to why I've created How to Code Well in the first place. I love teaching people and helping them progress in their careers. And the first month or so in their learning journeys is crucial, in my opinion. And it can be absolutely terrifying. So what I've done is I've created an article that I haven't yet published, and I want to talk about how I'll read out the article as it is at the minute, and I'll also lean on some of my experiences and perhaps talk about some things that I wish I would have done differently in, say, my first couple of months of my learning journey. Now, you have to take the definition of a learning journey. What is that compared to, say, your career? Because there's many people who learn coding and never actually become coders in terms of the professional sense. And that's perfectly fine. I think that at least the first year is a real set of stepping stones, and that will turn you into either a coder that you want to do this thing professionally, or it's going to turn you off from coding. So the first couple of months is really, you have to be very delicate and it's quite fragile, because you can be completely and utterly overwhelmed, and that can turn a lot of people off. Okay, so I'm going to just grab a drink, Mo, and then we'll get into this. Okay, so how to practice web development in your first month. What matters in your first month of learning web development is that you are having fun and able to concentrate on learning new skills in an environment that is well suited for consistent study. I'll say that again. What matters in your first month of learning web development is that you are having fun and able to concentrate on learning new skills in an environment that is well suited for consistent study. So we're going to break that down a little bit. So your first month, 4 weeks, 4 weekends, all right? It's really crucial that you're able to create an environment where you are able to study consistently within that month, within that period, and that you are having fun doing so. Because if you're not having fun when you're learning to code, then you'll just learn to hate it. Okay, so you've got to enjoy what you're doing. That's what I'm trying to say. Enjoy what you're doing. For some reason, the stream is starting to drop. I've got a feeling our storm that we're having in the UK is playing some silly buggers on the Wi-Fi here. Okay, so have the right tools and the working environment. You will need a laptop or a desktop computer. It doesn't need to be a super powerful machine, but it needs to run code. I would skip an operating system that you're unfamiliar with. So don't use this time to experiment with Linux if you're not already comfortable using a Linux distribution. All right. So if you're familiar with Windows, use Windows. If you're familiar with a Mac, use a Mac. You want to try and tackle this in the most frictionless way possible. So and what I mean by that is you want to be able to just pick up a laptop or turn on your desktop PC and then away you go. You don't want to want to worry about, what do you have to click to get to your browser, or what extensions you need to install, or where your IDE is and all of this stuff, or how do you navigate the file system in the command line. All of that stuff can wait, all right? Right now, you just need to press a button and get started and go. That's basically what... And if there is any barriers in your way, then it's going to make you less eager to learn if you're faced with all of these things. I'll give you an example. So what's it, like a year ago now, we had an Xbox, right? And you would play it regularly, and that would be perfectly fine. But there'll be months and months and months go by where we wouldn't play it at all. And then we would have an itch, I really want to play a computer game. So we'd turn it on. And then you would have to wait a whole half an hour just for the damn thing to update. And by that time, you were like, I'm done now. I can't be bothered with this. So what I'm saying is you want to be able to just grab a machine and turn it on and run with it. You don't want to have to worry about any kind of side quests that you have to do in order to be able to do your learning. Make sure that you can get some distraction-free time in a quiet environment. It isn't recommended to learn coding whilst watching TV or doing other things. Make sure you are in a well-lit room and can sit comfortably at your desk, because you're going to be sat there for at least an hour. So make sure that everything is nice and set up. You're in a nice, quiet, well-lit room. There is no distractions. There's no TV on. There's no children asking for things. There is no husbands and wives asking for things. You have an allocated time that you can sit down and do your studying. All of the distractions that you may face, will take your attention away from learning. Now, that is very easy for me to say as someone who doesn't have kids, and yeah, I'm totally aware that there's people who have kids and are coders, obviously, and obviously sacrifices have to be made. But what I'm saying is, if you can carve out an hour a day where there is hardly any distractions, maybe it is before anybody gets up, or maybe it's when everybody goes to bed, and you are just sat grinding and learning and having fun, learning to code, whilst all the other distractions are away, then you'll be more productive than, say, 2 hours where you have distractions coming in and out, right? So an hour of focused time a day. We'll talk about times and stuff, how long to code for in a minute. Okay, so I also recommend to write code and read code every day. We read code far more than we write code, because when we write code, we have to read the code that the code is around, and also we have to read the code that our code that we're writing interacts with. You see, so we read code far more than we write. But we want to do it when you're learning code in your first month. You want to make sure that you're doing it every single day. Some where am I here? Some recommend that you need to start. Oh, that's the next thing. Sorry. Ideally, yes. So read and write code every day. Ideally, you want to be spending at least 1 hour or more each day learning new web development skills. Consistency is key. It is better to learn 1 hour a day for 7 days compared to learning for 7 hours over the course of 1 day. So having breaks is important, and also having breaks where your brain can mull over the things that you've learned, and actually when you're asleep, your brain will be thinking about, being in standby mode and working through these challenges that you're facing. You'll also be thinking about the code and what you're learning and what you might be learning the following day. And if you cram all of that into a single day, then you're not going to have any downtime, any kind of time to decompress and to reevaluate what you're doing and analyze your progress. If it's just what's the word I'm looking for? If it's just a dedicated day a week, that is not as efficient as several hours dedicated over the course of many days. So as you progress, you'll be relearning what you have previously taught yourself, and it is okay to recap what you studied. So for example, let's say the first week you do, HTML. You learn a bit of HTML on Monday. You do a little bit more on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, you're like, I need to have a look and see what I've done on Monday and just remember that stuff. So I'm going to go back, and maybe on the third day, I just do everything I did on the first day. That's perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine, because what you're doing is you are cementing that in your mind. So it's fine. It's not linear. Learning code is not a linear thing. It is, but it's not all of the time. You can go back. I am learning musical instruments at the minute. I'm learning ukulele. And I am forever going back to the first ever lesson and just like, how do these chords work? Where do I have to put my fingers again? Is this chord actually an F or is this a G? What is that? So it's okay to go over your previous your learning days and actually just do those again if you need to. If you feel that you need to do it, there's nobody's going to say no, you can't do that. You must move on. But the consistency is the key. So make sure that you are doing this at least once a day and for at least an hour. So as you progress, relearning what you've previously been taught is okay to recap what you have studied. This actually helps cement the knowledge as you are going over what you have previously learned. And the section that I totally missed was don't worry about having a niche. So remember, this is your first ever month. And you hear all these people say, you got to niche down, man. You got to find a niche and you got to work on it. And you got to decide whether you are a front-end developer or a back-end developer. And you need to just drop all the back-end stuff if you're going to be a front-end developer. And, if you're going to be a PHP developer, you just forget all about Python. And if you're, doing CSS, you got to forget all about PHP. And then you got to niche down, get into Tailwind. And if you're a PHP developer, you got to be in Laravel, forget everything with Symfony. No. This is your first month. This is your first ever month. And if you haven't even done any coding before, then all of those things that I was just talking about are going to be completely make no sense to you at all. You need to know what the niches are before you decide to niche down. So some recommend that you need to start with a niche, but in my opinion, this rarely matters in the first month. And in fact, this doesn't matter at all, like in the first year, to be fair. It really only matters when you're actually getting into a career. Remember, I'm going to go back to the first sentence here before we carry on. And that is what matters in your first month of learning web development is that you are having fun and able to concentrate on learning new skills in an environment that is well suited for consistent study. So have fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, then you're going to learn to hate it and dislike it. So have fun with it. And if you've done an example before, do it again. If you found that was fun, change it a little bit. That's perfectly fine. Okay, so I'll read this again. Some recommend that you need to start with a niche, but in my opinion, this rarely matters in the first month of your learning journey. At this stage, you don't know what the niches are available, so it is okay to experiment. In fact, I recommend you try as much as you can and see what sticks and what you like and what you don't like. So don't worry if in the early stages you start learning things like JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Python, and PHP, and don't worry if you jump between them. It doesn't matter. You may think that you like CSS, but have you tried JavaScript? You may love JavaScript. And you may think that you like Python, but have you tried PHP? You may love PHP. It doesn't matter in your early stages as to what you're coding, as long as you're coding. And the fundamentals of coding, of being a programmer, those fundamentals transfer and translate to programming, to the various programming languages, albeit, CSS and HTML not being one of them. But if you learn how to do an if statement, control flows in PHP, you can pick that stuff up in Python. You can pick that stuff up in JavaScript. That's if you are graphically minded, you might want to work on some CSS. If you want to create computer games and just play some games and whatever, maybe a bit of JavaScript. If you're focusing on a mobile app, then do a bit of JavaScript. If you want to build a website with some server bits and pieces, use PHP or Python. It doesn't matter. And you can do this. Like on Monday, you could do a bit of HTML. On Tuesday, you do a bit of JavaScript. Wednesday, you could do a little bit of CSS, whatever. Or you could say, look, the first week of this month is just going to be pure HTML goodness. And then the second week, we're going to style this bad boy up. And then on the third week, we're going to put some nice events on it. And then in the fourth week, perhaps we're going to have a look at some PHP and write some server code. And, that's a pretty good way to go. If you've got an idea in mind, as by the end of this month, we're going to build a website with this, that looks like this, that acts like this, that has these kind of server features involved, then that's pretty good. Or if you just want to jump back and forth on the various days and see what actually you prefer doing, then that's perfectly fine as well. I'm trying to be as least gatekeepery as possible. I welcome everybody into this industry, and everybody has their own style of learning and their own way of getting in, right? So just find your flow. Okay, embrace happy accidents. Throughout your learning journey, you will be making a lot of mistakes. Please don't see these as failures, as I did when I started. Please don't see these as failures. Instead, instead use these accidents as learning opportunities by taking notes of the following. So there's 3 things to take note of when you come across a mistake or an accident. Number 1, what were you trying to do? What was it that you were trying to achieve? Number 2, what actually happened? So perhaps you wanted to try and center something, in CSS. And instead of it going in the middle, it went to the right. So what you were trying to do was center a div. And what it actually did, it went to the right. And then what did you do to solve the issue? If you are stuck on something similar, then tailor these days less. Yeah. So the 3 things are: what are you trying to do? What actually happened? And then what did you do to solve it? And then if you are really properly stuck on this, which you're probably going to be if you're new, right? And you've only got like an hour or 2 working on this thing, and you're like, oh God, I have so much that I need to do in these 2 hours, and I can't center this bloody div. This is just annoying as hell. Then just say, screw it. The whole 2 hours is now going to be me focused on getting this div in the center, or this image, or changing this background color, or creating a sticky footer, or creating a circle in CSS, or learning how to do includes in PHP, or creating, I don't know, all sorts of, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you're stuck on something and it's not something that you can solve easily, and let's be fair, if you're new to programming, it's going to be a challenge, right? You can just go, no, this is fine. This is okay. We're just going to do this now. And then the following day, we'll get back to try and get things back on course. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Your first month shouldn't be a rigid learning journey of you must learn this on this day. You must learn this on this day. You must learn this on this day. Doesn't need to be like that. Yes, that is important when you start getting more improved in your learning, when you're more skilled, because you get to a certain point where you should know these things. Give you another example, which isn't coding. So I do karate, right? And so I've been doing it for a few months, and I'm now a yellow belt. I'm a sort of a yellow belt orange tag. The stuff that I learned in the first ever lesson, I still do. I still do. But there are some things that are expected of me to know because I'm a yellow belt. And the further I go up, the more things are going to be expected of me to learn or to have already under my belt. But at the beginning stages, it's just having fun. And you are continually having fun as you learn. You got to learn to have fun as you do it. And you've got to learn to embrace the mistakes that you make. And some mistakes, in karate, if we're sparring, then you'll know that you made a mistake because you get smacked on the nose or you get put on the ground, but whatever. Or in ukulele, like for example, when I'm strumming and I miss a chord, I can hear it. Or if I'm not strumming right, it hurts my fingers or something like that. You know it. But the mistakes that you make, you might actually find, the chord that I'm playing isn't the chord that I should be playing, but it's actually another chord that I'm going to be learning later on. So these are happy accidents. So sometimes a mistake can actually turn out to be something rather good. This is frequently the case when writing CSS, as your web page may do something completely unexpected. Again, use this as a learning exercise and discover what the browser is actually doing and how you can manipulate it. So when something goes wrong, actually go, well, think in CSS at least, go think of it like this. This is actually the right way of doing the thing that the browser thinks you want to do. So let's work backwards. What is it that the browser has done? What is it that I want the browser to do? And let's see if we can use CSS to manipulate that. Maybe, for instance, I need to relearn the box model in CSS. Maybe I need to relearn how to create background colors, borders, whatever. But what it's doing at the moment is actually something that I can remember. That's how you deal with margins or padding, or that's how you move things to the right and to the left of the page. That's how you manipulate widths and percentages and all of this jazz, and typography. That's how you do it. And if you've come to those things by accident, see those as freebies. You perhaps set out your stall to learn X today, but actually you're going to be learning Y, and you don't really know it yet. Okay, so the last thing is to document your learning journey. This is so important. So it is important to keep a document of what you've learnt and as mentioned above, which is the embrace your happy accidents, keep a note of mistakes that you have made and resolved. This document could be in the form of a blog or even written hand notes. So you could have a journal that you write, and you could write some code in there, and you could perhaps write what you've learnt, But personally, I would prefer a blog in a digital space on the internet, because you'll be able to copy and paste code from what you're writing to the blog, and you can document it technically. You can start learning how to write technical documentation, which is really important. And another huge side effect of having a blog is that becomes your portfolio from the ground up, and you can document your learning journey, and you can see how you've progressed, and other people can see how you've progressed. If you want to keep it private, then please do. That's perfectly fine. Or you could create a bunch of draft posts of your learning journey. You don't have to publish it. But it is, if you are moving more into the career space of web development, then I recommend that you document what you've learnt and show those to your future employers. Put your CV put it on your CV, your portfolio down on your CV. That is really, really, really important. But having a blog is another way of recapping over what you've previously learned. So you can reread what you wrote, and you can, and that again becomes more cemented in your mind, and you can remember what it was that the challenges you faced and how you overcome them. And you can provide links to the resources that you're currently reading and using. But the most important takeaway here is to have fun. It is so important to enjoy what it is that you're doing and become passionate about coding. It doesn't matter if it's going to turn into a career or not. If the purpose of getting into coding is to become to be in the career, right? Fine. But that puts an awful lot of pressure upon you. So in the first month, at least in the first month, probably in the first 3, maybe even in the first year, just have fun with it and try not to put too much pressure on yourself. You must don't think, oh, by the end of this month I must be able to learn X. Because if you have that kind of carrot and you're chasing that kind of goal, if you don't get to that far, then you're just going to get very disheartened, and like I said, you're going to learn to dislike coding. Enjoy it. Find a challenge that you are interested in, perhaps outside of the coding space. Maybe it's a hobby, and try and fit some coding around it. Like, for example, if you go to the gym, maybe write some sort of tracker that you can say how many reps you've done, what kind of exercise you did, how long you did it for, those kind of things. Or maybe if you're doing something to do with, I don't know, maybe if you're into fantasy games, you could write some coding for that. Maybe if you're into some form of, mathematics and calculations, you could do something for that. Maybe if you wanted to create a game, or if you wanted to create a game that represents another game that you're playing outside of coding, do that. For example, I sometimes in my spare time, I paint Warhammer miniatures and I play Warhammer, right? And one of the ideas I had was to write an app for actually tallying up the points of my Warhammer models and creating various different armies and whatnot. There's lots of things that you can do that you can enjoy doing regarding coding. It's not always a case of just learning stuffy tutorials from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 to day 4. If you're able to wrap around your learning around something that you are equally as passionate about, that will give you more of a drive to actually continue it, because at some point you are going to get stuck and you have to make a decision as to plow on, see if you can actually get this to get to the solution, which means probably having to have lots of small micro failures in order to get to that point, lots of trial and error, lots of learning, lots of frustration, or jack it in. And if you've wrapped your coding around something that you are passionate about and that you want to do because you can actually use it after you've learned how to build the thing, then that gives you more of a drive to do so. I think I'm going to be talking about these kind of things in more detail coming up, because I've got some ideas under my hat as to perhaps some example projects that you could do. And also maybe I could break down more formally what a typical first month could actually look like in terms of learning to code. And also it's going to be different this is web development. It's going to be different if you're learning data science and other things that don't necessarily rely on websites. It's the same with mobile apps as well. There'll be a different set of perhaps syllabus, shall we say, that one would follow, because you would probably be less likely bothered with HTML and you'll be more interested in certain aspects of Python, certain aspects of the various mobile technologies as well. But it's important to just try as much as you can, see what sticks, see what you enjoy, see what you dislike. And have fun. Right, I'm going to shoot off. Thank you ever so much for watching. Do check out the courses at howtocodewell.net. And I will see you hopefully the same time next week. I'll let everybody know by Twitter. If you haven't done so already, please do follow me on Twitter at howtocodewell. Take care, everybody. Speak to you soon.